Camera, welcome back. Weekly by tiers. There's a lot of things happening. World of sports, forwards, we go. All right, here you go. Image, forward, prediction strike, smash. What are the plays we love the most? Well, fortunately, I got the images on here. For me, it's J.K. Dobbins this week. I'm just not going to overcomplicate it. Saints defense has been terrible against the run. Just going to hammer that home. Why do you guys like Brees and Joe Mixon?
This offense in general has just pretty much switched into a lot of running the ball. Brees has gotten a ton of work after the coaching change, and it feels like that's probably going to continue this weekend against a bad run D in New England. Hoping for Brees' sake as well that it's probably a positive game script with them up points. But with this Jets team, you never really know. They could drop a game to anyone. But that's at least the hope, and I feel like Brees is going to get 20-plus carries. He's going to be efficient with those carries, and he's going to have a huge day. He's probably my RB1 this week.
Yeah, similarly, I think this is a smash week for Joe Mixon. He's just looked like an absolute beast in general. He gets the Colts this week, who in week 1, he saw 30 carries for 159 yards. I just think this is a smash spot for him. I think Houston's going to look to continue riding him, particularly in this matchup with a bad run D. Their passing game is a little bit hemorrhaged without Nico Collins, so I think they emphasize the run game against this really bad Colts D.
I like it. All right, on to the next tier. So receivers, for me, I just like targeting this particular secondary. Similar reasonings for Jackson, why he likes the run game there. Taking my chance on a receiver and Stephon Diggs. But what do you guys like Jamar Chase and Jalen Waddle this week?
Jamar, I just feel like the Eagles secondary isn't anything great. This game feels like it'll be a shootout. Two teams with good offenses that are kind of in the midst of the playoff race, but a little bit on the outside. The Eagles in second place in the divisional race, and then the Bengals in like third in the division or so, but probably fighting for wild card spots. Still a good team, but this feels like two offenses that are probably going to click against defenses that aren't great. I think you could throw AJ Brown in the same tier. I expect him to have a similar performance against the Bengals D. So, I'm starting any wide receivers I can get my hands on that are playing in this game for sure.
Yeah, and Waddle, I don't know if this is the best. I mean, if he really fits in the elite category, but I do like him this week. I think he has a projection of like 13.3, and obviously it's contingent on Tua making his return, which it looks like he is going to be doing. Obviously Tua is a great option for him. This is a great matchup against the Cardinals, who are pretty easy to get behind on the back end. So I think we see, obviously a better than average week here for Jalen Waddle.
Right on. All right. On to the next one. So tight ends. Mine's simple. No Jameson Williams. Should take up for Laporta. Don't overthink it. But not the best matchup in the world. Kittle and Kincaid. Why should we like these two?
Kittle's just the only guy there that they really trust. He still has some injury concerns. I don't think he's practiced yet. We'll see. We'll get some info today to see if he practiced today. But, he feels like he's going to be their wide receiver 1 going forward. I like taking some stabs at Juwan and Ricky Pearsall maybe, but it feels like Kittle's the main guy, and his target share is going to be gigantic going into the rest of the season. And when you can find that for a tight end in a tight end market that's been pretty bad all season, this feels like a must-buy and a must-start candidate for sure.
Yeah, as far as Kincaid goes, he hasn't really been performing as shareholders would want him to be in general, but he does have a matchup this week against the Seahawks, who allow the 5th most fantasy points to tight ends. Dawson Knox is also hurt, who's been eating up a lot of that Kincaid usage. So I think this should be a relatively big game for him.
All right, love it. On to the next one. Where do we stand against the public? All right, so running backs, I like Achon. Similar reason to why Jackson likes the other Miami pieces on the receiving end. Just good spot for the run game. Tua comes back, should be a good spot for him in general. Kareem Hunt, Rico Dowdle, what do we like about them?
Yeah, great game script against the Raiders. Run D hasn't been great over there. I expect the Chiefs to cruise in this one, and Hunt should get another 20 touches. He's also scored a touchdown in both the weeks where he's been a bell cow. I expect that to continue. I think he should easily be in that like 16, 17 point range.
Yeah, with Dowdle, the Cowboys are coming off of a bye. the coaching staff has said that they want to get Rico Dowdle more involved in the offense. So obviously a great spot to implement those words would be right after a bye week. So I think this is a good spot here for him to maybe see a bump in usage. The 49ers aren't the stoutest run defense right now. Kareem Hunt just looked like the best running back of all time against them. So I think if Dowdle gets those opportunities, like I think he will, he should put up a pretty good performance here.
All right, I like it. On to the next one. So the receivers, mine's all about first read target rates. I understand that they just signed DeAndre Hopkins, but the Raiders secondary is not the best in the world. So willing to take a chance that the guy who hasn't been able to do anything against press could potentially get something done here. But then again, he could absolutely dud once again. What do we like about Dubs and Keenan Allen here?
I think Diop might also just suck too. So I don't know if you have much to worry about there. I like Dobbs a lot, just going against a Jaguars secondary that is not very good at all. He's been leading the team in targets, or at least joint top with Tucker Kraft. Last week he had 10, hauled in 7 of those, had around 90 yards, I think. He's just been super consistent. It's kind of crazy that his usage has actually gone up after he skipped practice and was like being a diva about things. And then like, you know what, you're right. You should get control more. But it's working, and I mean he's a guaranteed flex option in pretty much any league format for me this week. So yeah,
I like that. Keenan Allen, he has a really nice prediction strike projection this week of 10.38 fantasy points. He's coming off a game where he looked like the clear wide receiver one. He had caught 2 touchdowns, 5 receptions in total for 21.5 fantasy points. Going up against the Commanders here, who rank in the bottom 10 against fantasy wide receivers. So I foresee another good game here, and I think his projection is lagging behind the production we're going to see from him.
All right, I like it. On to next year, tight ends. So nothing too funny. You're kind of probably see a similar theme, but Cade Otton, receivers are outgone, and this is a guy that surprisingly had a very strong game last week. So maybe they'll continue to turn to him. Why do we like Hunter Henry and Chig here?
Hunter Henry's just been Drake May's guy. I mean, he's targeted Demario Douglas a good amount too. But Douglas went out of that last game with a sickness, and Hunter Henry was the main safety blanket after that, with a lot of kind of over the middle routes and easier things to kind of get Drake May's confidence up. And it feels like they've developed a bit of a connection there. So I wouldn't be surprised if he's the primary target going forward.
Yeah, with Chig, he has a projection of like 6.4 right now, which I think is really attractive in this game against the Lions. Mason Rudolph playing in the stead of Will Levis, and DeAndre Hopkins just got traded. So we got some better quarterback play. We've got obviously a larger role ahead for Chigakonkwo. The Lions aren't necessarily terrible against tight ends, but they do have a really good secondary. So I do kind of foresee Mason Rudolph looking for a lot of those underneath passes. Johnny Munt caught 4 passes against the Lions, and Chig has been playing a pretty high snap share recently. So I like this play.
Right on. I like it. On to the next tier. So what do we see that no one else does? So running backs, taking a swing on the guy who fumbled last week, probably will not do anything. But if this game gets out of hand like I'm expecting it to, then realistically, Estime should get some run in the fourth quarter, because I don't see why you wouldn't be giving your rookies run in the fourth quarter if you're blowing the other team out. But yeah, Ray Davis, Jalen Warren, why should we be interested in them this week?
His roles just kind of upticked consistently throughout the last couple weeks. Obviously, at the one pop game when James Cook was out, and I expect this backfield to be kind of a split backfield by the end of the season. So just kind of taking a stab at a week where I feel like that could start happening.
Yeah, I thought Jalen Warren would be a good against the market pick, just because Najee has kind of been establishing himself in the past couple of weeks as the main guy out there. But to me, it does seem like Warren seems to be over this knee injury that kept him out for 2 games. He's been banged up, but he looks to be over it. He had a solid week 7, 12 carries, 44 yards, and 2 catches for 15 yards. This is a good matchup here against the Giants, who allow a ton of PPR points to running backs. He should also benefit from Russell Wilson starting. So I think this is a decent spot for Warren.
I like it. All right. On to the next one. So the receivers that we're scraping the bottom of the barrel for, Taking a chance on Troy Franklin this week. The receiving room is still relatively open, and he has been getting more and more trust with his college quarterback. So, going to continue that relationship. McMillions and Tillman. What should we like about these two?
McMillan, I guess he's probably not the most scraping the barrel. I feel like a lot of people were high on him this week in waivers, but he's a guy that I spent a lot of my fab budget on and was very confident in coming into this week, just based on his role as a slot receiver that he had in the Washington offense last year. Ran like 70% of his routes from the slot in college. And Chris Godwin does the same in the NFL, so it feels like he's the easiest guy to kind of slot in there in the Chris Godwin role, which I think also will give him the most relevance when Mike Evans is back, because you'll still have Mike Evans on the outside, and he'll be the guy that's running the slot routes. So it feels like he could easily kind of just slot into that role and have a big role for the rest of the season starting this weekend.
Yeah, we saw what Cedric Tillman was able to do last week. We know Jameis Winston is going to be starting. They're playing the Ravens. He's going to need to be chucking. They stuff the run usually, but they tend to struggle in the secondary. I think Jameis might have, an interception or two this game just with the strong Ravens defense, but with Njoku pretty much being the only other true target that he has out there, I think Tillman's going to see a ton of volume this game at least. Jameis Winston is really good under pressure in terms of touchdowns per attempt, so I like it a lot here.
All right. I like it. The last one here, the tight ends that we're really scraping the bottom of the barrel for. Dalton Schultz just attacking that secondary once again. His target rate's gone up a bit, so we'll take chances there. Disley and Cruel, what should we like about these two?
Yeah, Disley just seemed like he was kind of figuring out how to be successful in this offense. It was a really random group of dudes that were getting targets in that Monday night game. You saw Jalen Reagor getting a lot of target share, and also like Seko Fokana or something like that. Well,
Semi Fahoko, yeah.
Yeah. So plenty of targets to go around. Will Disley was eating in that first half. I think he had like 6 catches in the first half alone. Seemed like he was developing a little bit of a relationship there with Justin Herbert. Hayden Hurst is pretty much a nothing, so it feels like Will Disley's worth taking a stab at if you don't have one of the top 8 or so tight ends in fantasy football.
I like it.
Yeah, Lucas Krull. We've seen Bo Nix sort of establish himself here as the franchise quarterback. I trust him a little bit more than I did maybe at the beginning of the season. Krull sat out the first 4 games. His production has increased through each one of the games he's played in. Last week, he caught 3 of 4 passes for 41 yards. Playing the Panthers this week, who give up bottom 5 fantasy points to tight ends. This just seems like a fun little spot to maybe see Krull continue that increased production.
All right. Well, that's it. That's kind of it for this week. Short, sweet, something neat. Hopefully that was helpful for you all. And, of course, invest accordingly. Subscribe if you haven't already. And until next time, hope you have a great day. And, yeah, peace, y'all.